AFC West Day on the Athletic Football Show. Derek, this is a much more interesting conversation this time this year than it was at this time last year when it was the Chiefs and everybody else. Now we got 3 returning playoff teams for the AFC West. It's a brave new world here. It's a new day.
It's an extremely new day. Like, this is... I mean, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, so they're going to be the, kings of the division. But, like, this is the first time in a while I feel like multiple teams can actually come at their head, which is an incredibly exciting time to be in. Because this time last year, I don't think anyone liked Bo Nix, and we didn't know if Sean Payton was any good at the job anymore. The Chargers, we just thought the roster wasn't good enough, and the Raiders were the Raiders. So, I mean, it was just not a fun division this time last year.
I might be more interested in the Raiders than any of the other teams in this division, which I think says a lot about the Raiders. And that's not even to besmirch the other teams. Like, I think the Broncos are extremely exciting right now, Dave. Obviously, the Chargers made the playoffs last year, but the fact that the Raiders are intriguing in a division where we have these 3 playoff teams coming back. The AFC West had not been in a position like this and I can't remember how long, because the Raiders have never been in a position like this for I can't remember how long.
Okay, I hate to be a contrarian. Who am I kidding? I love to be a contrarian. But I want to bring this up, and I'm so glad you framed it that way. We did this whole song and dance with the AFC West in 2022 because the Broncos traded for Russ and Devontae Adams joined the division, and everybody was all high on it, and the Chiefs did their Chiefs thing. And I feel better about the division this year than I did then. And I do think this is an intriguing division, but I just want to make it clear for the record, I think Kansas City still runs this thing, and I don't want to get out ahead of myself by acting like this is a wide open division. I don't think that's true.
Nathaniel Hackett and Josh McDaniels is a little bit different to me than Pete Carroll and Sean Payton.
That's the exact point I was about to make.
That's fair. All I'm saying is we did this whole thing where the AFC West was supposed to be a juggernaut, and it wasn't a juggernaut. And even if it's more even now, which I do think is true, I still think there's levels to this. Like, I still think of the Chiefs as several steps above the other 3 teams.
I'm not disputing any of that. I just think the overall competency level at both the head coach and quarterback position for the other 3 teams are at a place they have not been for a very long time. The 4 head coaches in this division, 3 of them have won Super Bowls, and 1 of them has been to the Super Bowl as a head coach. Like, we're in a slightly different place, even if this is still the Chiefs' thing to win. So let's get to those Kansas City Chiefs right now. For each of these teams, as part of our division previews, we are doing their offseason in 60 seconds. Just as a quick little refresh for everybody who might have missed any of these transactions. Extended Trey Smith, offensive guard, 4 years, $94 million, $70 guaranteed. George Karlaftis, defensive end, 4 years, $88 million, $62 guaranteed. Nick Bolton, linebacker, 3 years, $45 million, $30 guaranteed. Brought in offensive tackle Jalen Moore in free agency, 2 years, $30 million, $21 guaranteed. Might not need him anymore. Christian Fulton, the cornerback, 2 years, $20 million, $15 guaranteed. Brought back Hollywood Brown, a 1 year, $7 million. Just traded for Derek Nottie from the Jets. Smaller deals for Charles Menahu, Elijah Mitchell, and Jerry Tillery. In the draft, Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, 32nd overall. Defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott, 2nd overall, 63rd. Second round, 63rd overall. Edge Ashton Galati, 3rd round, 66th overall. Cornerback Noah Williams, 3rd round, 85th overall. Wide receiver Jalen Royals, 4th round, 133rd overall. In free agency / the trade market, lost Joe Tooney, Deshaun Wharton, Justin Reed, Justin Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Sky Moore. For each of these teams, we are kicking this off with what we are most excited to watch in 2025. Derek, what are you most excited to watch with the Kansas City Chiefs this season?
Hell or high water, I think the deep ball's coming back to Kansas City. Like, the way that Patrick Mahomes keeps talking about it, the way that they've built the roster have tried to build the roster over the past couple of years with getting guys like, drafting Xavier Worthy and stuff like that. And now bring in Josh Simmons, who we'll talk about a little bit later. I think like the issue with them not being able to throw deep was twofold, right? It was you didn't have Tyreek Hill and stuff anymore, and that was certainly part of it. But they also couldn't, I think, from the tackles perspective, protect for a lot of the deep stuff the way that they wanted to. So the only way that they could get to it was these like 8-man protection, throw the ball downfield, and it just wasn't good enough. I think with the way the roster is constructed now, the way that Patrick Mahomes keeps itching to throw the deep ball again, this coming back.
Just the overall offense in general, Dave, I think collectively that's what we are most excited to watch. Like this version of the Chiefs offense, the best quarterback in the world, according to a lot of people still, with a fuller arsenal along both the offensive line and at the pass catching spots than we have seen over the last couple of years. That is what I am excited to watch with this year's version of the Chiefs.
I'm glad you framed it the way that you did because, and I try not to be susceptible to summertime rage bait, but you can only take so much, right? But the number of people that are trying to do this Patrick Mahomes has fallen off thing really got to me this year. Like the number of people who have Patrick Mahomes like third or worst in their quarterback tiers or hierarchy or whatever you want to call it is deeply insulting to me. And I am excited to see Patrick Mahomes back with just the offense that he was supposed to have, basically. That's the thing that really pisses me off about the 2024 Chiefs. I feel like the NFL community just memory hold what happened to them. I feel like when we talk about the Chiefs, maybe it's because Rashee Rice has been dealing with this auto accident and the looming suspension for so long.
Auto accident is a generous way to put it.
Rashee Rice got too adventurous in his driving. Whatever. I'm not absolving Rashee Rice. The point I'm trying to make is he played 155 snaps for this team. He was out for the year before the calendar even flipped to October. Hollywood Brown came back for the playoffs. Yes. He played 163 snaps. I feel like the fact that he was there for the big playoff games make people forget that he wasn't part of this team. Isaiah Pacheco played less than 300 snaps for the Chiefs. They had a rotating door of bad options at left tackle. And despite all of that, they played in the freaking Super Bowl. In what world are we no longer impressed with Patrick Mahomes? It is insane. And I'm just excited. I don't think this is the best offense in the NFL. I don't think Patrick Mahomes' weapons are as good as some other quarterbacks in the league. But this group of players with better health, I think we will see the Patrick Mahomes we remember. Like the idea that he's fallen off is nutso.
I believe that it could be the best offense in the NFL. Like, I think there is a path for them to be the best offense in the NFL. If Rashee Rice was not going to be suspended for like 5 or 6 games, and obviously there's still a little bit of ambiguity about how that's going to go, but if Rashee Rice was healthy for most of the season with the offensive line improvements, I think there would be a path for this team to be the best offense in the league. They're not going to be ever explosive on the ground with this version of Isaiah Pacheco. Like, that's just not going to happen. I know he was hurt last year, but if you look at their lack of explosive plays, a good chunk of that is that they had 0 explosive runs. This team was 30th in explosive run rate last year per True Media. Only the Rams and the Raiders had fewer explosive runs on a rate basis than the Chiefs. So that part of it, it's still probably not going to be an explosive run game, even if their run game has been consistently efficient. The explosive passes, I do think, are going to be back this year, like Derek said, for a couple different reasons. The protection is just such an important part of all of this. And even if Josh Simmons takes a little bit to get his feet wet at left tackle, having Mahomes just feel a little bit more secure, and we've talked about this all summer, Derek, he is more concerned with edge pressure than he is with interior pressure as a quarterback. It affects him more. And that's not something we typically ascribe to elite quarterbacks. Typically, we do the opposite. But with him specifically, I think that is what we have come to learn. I think that's what the Chiefs have come to learn. And that's why they overextended themselves to go get Jalen Moore plus drafting a guy in the first round to make sure we're not around with this anymore. Like, we need to get this figured out because then the rest of it will come into view. And I think the other part of this is that if you move Rashee Rice back into the lineup, you move Xavier Worthy back into a role where you can be explosive down the field. I was looking at the numbers on this today. When Rashee Rice was in the lineup early in the season and on the field, which I know is super early, so there's a chance that Worthy's role might have changed anyway over the course of the year. But if you look at the numbers, 50% of his routes with Rashee Rice on the field were vertical routes, goes post corners. Without Rashee Rice on the field, that goes to 33%. So I think he's going to be back in that role where he's going to be a vertical downfield presence. The hit rate on throws to him has to be better this year just based on sheer luck than it was last year. And Rashee Rice, even if it wasn't down the field plays, was unbelievably explosive last year. I was looking up the rate numbers for wide receivers, just looking at something else. I was actually looking at Travis Kelce's numbers, and it was just staggering to see what Rashee Rice was doing before he got hurt last year. He was number 1 in the NFL in those 3 games. It was really 3.1 games in first downs per route run. If you extend it over the whole season, his yards per route run number would have been second in the league behind only Puka Nacua. losing this guy was a huge, huge deal, and he makes everything else make more sense. So I'm with you, Dave. Like with even a slight uptick in left tackle play, plus those receivers coming back, even if Rice misses a decent chunk of games, I think we might see a version of this Chiefs offense that we have not seen for a while, Derek.
I think the Rashee Rice thing is like, because he's not Tyreek Hill, right? Like it's a different skill set. Rice is a little bit better underneath. He's tougher. He's, able to like fight through contact in a way that Hill couldn't always, whereas Hill was your downfield guy. It's also that, like, I think because Rashee Rice didn't really come on till the end of his rookie year, he was not like a super high draft pick. There's just like this, like, he doesn't get quite the same shine as some of these other guys. But yeah, when he's in the offense, the last like 10 games that he's played for the Chiefs have been incredible. Like, he's truly one of the most productive receivers in the NFL. And so to just get that guy back, and I think to more importantly, like you said, knock the other guys down a roll, I think that goes like a really long way, especially for Worthy. Like, Worthy cannot be a volume receiver. Like, that's just not what you drafted him to be. It's not what he's built to be. And so the fact that he gets to be knocked down and just be like, I don't know, be like Ted Ginn. Like, if he can just do that, like that, I know that that doesn't sound like that flashy for a first round pick, but like if he can be that and Rice is as good as he is, then like that's more than enough for the Chiefs to be the best offense in the league again.
I think we'll see Worthy being used in some of the same ways he was used in the back half of last season, like in the red zone, right? Like they have all that eye candy where they're putting guys in motion. I think some of that horizontal stretch, you will still see it because they can weaponize his speed that way. But I think some of the schemed underneath touches and using him as a space player in the way that they had to because no one else had anything approaching that skill set on the roster, I think that will go away as long as they have Rashee Rice. The entire vision for the offense last year was Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy creating space for the underneath receivers. We got one game of it, and it looked incredible against the Ravens in Week 1. I know the Ravens were a mess, but I still am sort of attaching myself to that vision of the Chiefs' offense, and I do believe there is a chance we get something closer to that this year. Let's talk about these swing points for the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs, the areas where this team and their season could pivot this year. Derek, what do you got for me?
It's got to be the first round left tackle. Like, if Josh Simmons is good enough, this team, that is one of the other big reasons that this team could be really good. Because again, like I said, part of the reason that they could not throw down the field last year was that they did not feel like they could protect, especially in like drop back scenarios. Because if we think back to like the best versions of the Chiefs offense in 2019, 2020, whatever it was, they could throw vertically without having to like be in these heavier sets and go play action and all that stuff. They could just, all right, 5 out in the route and Pat's just going to chuck it. They have not been able to do that. I would say the last 2 years, but especially last year. And if Simmons can at least go from, I don't know, the Chiefs having like tackle 31 last year to like offensive tackle 21, like that goes a really long way in Patrick Mahomes being comfortable back there, having the time to find guys like Worthy and Rice down the field. And if they can tap into that a little bit, I think that's how we go from, oh, the Chiefs found a way to be the 7th best offense again versus, oh, they're lighting the world on fire.
And he's looked pretty good in the preseason so far,
Oh,
Dave.
yeah.
I mean, some of the flashes that we've seen from him, Jeff Schwartz and Mitchell Schwartz, both of them, thank God both of them are so invested in the Chiefs. We're getting like deep niche Chiefs offensive line content from
It's
the
such a
preseason
cheat
for
code.
free.
The Schwartz brothers.
Jeff pointing out a lot of the stuff he saw from Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia in that last preseason game that the Chiefs played. You know, Simmons has like little quirks with him in pass protection. Like sometimes he gets a little bit overextended, gets a little bit out over his knees, stuff like that. But I think overall, what you saw from him over the past month or so and everything we've heard about him from training camp is very promising. I'm sure he'll take his lump the same way any rookie would, but the early returns, I think you can feel pretty good about.
It is a funny tidbit that left tackle was such a dumpster fire that it completely overshadows the loss of one of the best guards of his generation in Joe Thuney. You trade him to Chicago, and that is the second storyline compared to solving left tackle, which I think that's totally fair. And, you know, if Josh Simmons is even decent, then whether it's Kingsley Suamataia or if Mike Caliendo gets back in there the way that he did at the tail end of the season, you feel good about whoever's playing between Creed Humphrey and a serviceable left tackle. So like, I think it makes sense, but I think it's also worth pointing out Joe Thuney, who helped them overcome the tackle problem long enough to get to the Super Bowl. That is a pretty big loss, even if it's not the marquee position that left tackle is.
There's no doubt, but I think there are two things to weigh there. One, again, I think tackle is a little bit more of an issue for him than guard is when it comes to if you're going to have a problem somewhere. And the other
Yep.
part is Sumate has looked okay. Like in the preseason, especially in the run game, I think that he's had some really nice moments for somebody transitioning inside where the game happens a little bit quicker. I mean, there were a couple like high level moments that he had in that Bears preseason game that I think can really give you a little bit of hope that this version of the experiment with kicking him inside and that being your best five can actually work for this team.
So that's the part of it that I'm also really excited for. Obviously, it's for the pass protection and letting Mahomes do what he does. But I think part of why the run game has lacked explosives, I mean, one, it is partly the backs, right? Like they're just not built to do that. But also so much of their run game is just, especially last year's, like so much attached to RPOs.
Yeah.
You're just not going to be explosive with RPOs because like the way you get explosives in the run game is like finding angles, displacing people with motion and certain stuff like that. When you're just attaching stuff to RPOs and trying to get numbers count, you can be efficient, and they were really efficient, but you're probably not going to be explosive. And so if they have to lean on less of that this year because Simmons and Suamataia can actually move people a little bit, I think that again could open up some stuff for them.
It's a great point because there was a moment a couple years ago where they were able to really run the ball downhill on their terms, and I think we've just seen a little bit less of that over the last couple years. My swing for the Chiefs is just how the secondary ends up shaking out. You know, they've kind of retooled that spot a little bit. They went out and drafted Noah Williams. They're just healthier at that other outside corner spot. Obviously, that was such a nightmare for them over the course of last season when they were trying to figure out where to play Trent McDuffie because they were dealing with some of those injuries. Now, you know, you're back with a full stable of guys there, and it feels so far throughout training camp and the preseason like it's gonna be Trent McDuffie inside outside again with Chamari Connor going down and being that nickel and sort of that big nickel 3 safety look that they have. And I just don't know how I feel about that. I
I
think
hate
more
it.
and more teams are doing this where they're putting a third safety in that spot in order to kind of insulate yourself against like 12 personnel runs and things like that. I mean, we've seen a bunch of it. We're going to see even more of it this year. I can't tell you how many times that idea of like a bigger nickel defender and the value of it came up in conversation with coaches over the last month. You know, in Los Angeles, Derwin James is going to be that guy. You know, we know about Kyle Hamilton. There's so many of them. And so now it seems like they're going to roll with Shamari Connor in that spot again. I just feel like they struggled at times because of that last year. And so if you have the outside corner bodies to move McDuffie back in there, there's still part of me, Derek, that believes that might be the best collection of DBs that the Chiefs could put on the field.
Yeah, like if they think Connor at the nickel is better than whoever they have at the other outside cornerback 2 spot, fine. I guess I get it, but like the best possible version of this secondary has McDuffie playing the nickel because he is a like field changing player when he is at the nickel. He like damn near won them a Super Bowl when he was playing in the nickel. And he's like a good player outside, but he's like a B level corner outside, maybe like B plus. And that again, that's like nice, but he is a truly difference making player from the nickel. And I think this is all especially important because like I don't trust the safeties as much as I did now, as opposed to when Justin Reed was there. And I think these younger guys are fine, but they're not Justin Reed. Where like Justin Reed was also like a difference-making player. And so if Justin Reed is no longer in the spine of your secondary, and now McDuffie again is going to have to play outside instead of more towards the middle, I just feels like the middle of the defense is like a little bit iffy to me.
That's a note that I wanted to make when we were looking at this, which is I think it's interesting the difference between how they approached major losses at safety. Like as soon as they decided Tyrann Mathieu wasn't going to be part of their plans, like they identified Justin Reed immediately and they were willing to spend a premium to bring him on, and it worked out really well. I get it. You're living in a different world when Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and some of these other guys are making a ton of money. The interior of your offensive line is accounting for a huge percentage of your salary cap. But they did not do that when Justin Reed left. Like they're trusting in-house guys that they've drafted and developed to step into that role. I wonder if that's because they like these guys that much better or just because financially you have to live that way with the way your roster is right now. But yeah, I mean, Justin Reed, ultimate cleanup guy. Like you could always count on him to clean up your mess. And I don't feel as confident about that as I did before.
Jaden Hicks last year, who they drafted, I believe, in the 4th round, played 330 snaps. I mean, that's going to be at least double if he ends up becoming the third safety, let alone if he's the guy they're going to have in those two safety looks and Shamari Connor comes off the field. So how they end up shaking out those 5-6 DB spots over the course of the year and what the combination ends up looking like, it's just in front of mind for me because I do think it was one of the things to really consider about how that Chiefs team was going to rise and fall over the back half of last season. Let's talk about what's keeping us up at night with the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs. Dave, lay it on me. What is keeping you up at night about this Chiefs team?
You kind of mentioned this at the top. I won't repeat all the stats, but I'm rooting like hell for Isaiah Pacheco to stay healthy this year because he's a super fun player. To quote my guy Jordan Lewis, he's the one that said Isaiah Pacheco runs like he bites people. Like he's just fun to watch. But on top of that, don't make me watch what this run game looked like without him last year. Don't make me do that again. I mean, Kareem Hunt, 11 explosive rushes on 200 carries last year. It's the same number of explosive runs as any guy that ran for half as many yards. Like backs that had 85 carries on the year had 11 explosive runs. Dead last in yards after contact, Kansas City. Kareem Hunt, 19th in success rate. I did like all season long from the time Pacheco got hurt. I was like, I understand that you can't just ask Mahomes to drop back 50 times, but every handoff just feels like a waste of everyone's time and energy. Like, this is so boring. It's not going anywhere. 5.5% explosive run rate. So I lose sleep thinking about having to watch 12 games of that. So I want Pacheco to stay healthy. Brashard Smith is there now, but I haven't heard anything coming out of camp that makes me think that I should get excited about that. Maybe as the season goes along, that'll change. So for the time being, I just really want to see Pacheco do his thing and nobody else.
And Brashard Smith is kind of an undersized, more explosive piece as far as I understand it.
He's not like a true between the
he's like
tackles
a pass catching sort of back. Yeah. I think part of me is a little bit sad that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing worked out the way that it did, because I think it's going to scare the Chiefs off from ever really investing in a running back again. And I kind of wish this offense would have like a real dude at running back. The way that this draft went specifically, they did exactly what they should have done when it comes to addressing positions of need, like going out and getting a left tackle and then figuring out interior and edge depth based on what that group looked like last year. We'll get to that in a second. Plus, trying to restock the cupboard at corner because a lot of those guys are hitting free agency after this year. Correct approach. I have no criticisms whatsoever, but there's a little part of me that was like, man, it'd be cool to just have a really good running back as part of this offense again.
I really need it really badly, man. Like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing sucks so bad too, because they were on the right track, I think, with running back, and then Jonathan Taylor is like 10 picks later, and it's like, man, you almost had it right there. You almost had the right thing.
I thought Clyde was designed for that offense. It was very disillusioning.
That's one of those heat check moments for everybody involved. I think Mahomes was part of that pick. That team was just riding real high at that point. Every once in a while, you fly a little bit too close to the sun. What's keeping me up at night about the Chiefs, we just kind of pointed at it, the defensive line pieces beyond Chris Jones and Karlaftis, that was quietly one of the biggest issues that this team had by the end of last year. When you watch them in the playoffs, and you watch them especially in the Super Bowl, the lack of pressure and disruption, period, from that group really started to show up. And then when you combine that with some of the issues that they were having at corner, everything starts to compound a little bit. This team finished 30th in pressure rate when bringing 4 last year. The only teams who had a lower pressure rate, according to Next Gen, than the Kansas City Chiefs when bringing 4 pass rushers last year were the Patriots and the Panthers.
Who just spent a ton of money to fix their pass rush.
Yes.
Both of them.
Both of them. And the Chiefs, to their credit, they did spend draft capital to try to fix this. They drafted a defensive tackle in the second round. They drafted Galati in the third round. So I understand that they think this is a problem, but you got 2 day 2 picks. That's really all you brought in to try to make this better. We'll see if Menahu, a year further removed from the injury, what that looks like. But for the most part, this is not a group outside of those 2 highly paid guys that really scares you, Derek. And I think that really showed up last year when this team wasn't bringing extra bodies as they tried to get after the quarterback.
And this to me has I think over the last couple of years, as the Chiefs have realized they need to restock the offense, the defense has had to take a backseat again. Whereas I think 3 years ago, it was kind of the opposite. The Chiefs are now like the way that this all spells out to me is the Chiefs for a long time had Mike Dana as like the perfect edge 3 or 4 who was like coming
Yes.
off the bench, edge setter, all this stuff. He's starting again probably. That's like when your depth piece for like 3-4 years becomes a starter, you clearly have not been able to restock the cupboard the way that you wanted. So maybe Galati like steps up. I kind of get him. Like I enjoy him as like he actually reminds me a lot of George Karlaftis, but it's just like how quickly can he really get up to speed. So again, maybe it also concerns me a little bit that they let Derek Nottie go and then immediately this offseason we're like, we need him back. We have to trade for him, which I think is that kind of tells you all you need to know probably about the rest of the D tackle room.
Part of the problem here is that FAU just never turned into the guy they wanted. And now he's on IR.
Yeah.
So the fact that really never developed, and you don't have that many first round picks to throw around, burning one on a pass rusher who really has not been impactful for you whatsoever. I think you're starting to feel the effects of that a little bit as they try to rebuild this group in kind of more modest ways. What we're watching over the first month of the season, we're doing this for every team. What are you going to for the Chiefs, Derek?
For me, it's just in 2 ways. What are we getting out of Rashee Rice? Like, first of all, he's coming off of the injury, right? And so I think when you have a player who his whole game was like built on being really explosive, especially underneath, you just like not worry, but I do wonder like how much of that is he going to be able to tap into immediately, especially early on in the season. And then by the end of the first month, I think we should have an answer on like, is he going to be suspended? For how long is he going to be suspended? When is he going to come back? All that stuff. So we're going to learn, I think, a lot about Rashee Rice by the end of September.
This is funny because I had all the other pass catchers and what version of them we get over the first month of the season. We talked about Xavier Worthy a little bit. Like I'm curious what Xavier Worthy's usage is going to look like when Rashee Rice is back, and where along the late season usage and the early season usage he falls, and what they want out of him this year. But the other guy for me that I'm looking at, and I know this seems kind of silly, I want to know what version of Travis Kelce that we're getting. The newly engaged Travis Kelce. Like, are we going to get the 2024 version of Travis Kelce again, when it just seemed like he was pretty cooked compared to even what he was in 2023? The numbers are pretty jarring when you look at them. Last season, among tight ends with at least 25 targets, Kelce was 20th in yards per route run. 20th. He was 16 in first downs per route. You compare that to 2023, he was 22nd among all players in first downs per route run, and last year he was 62nd when you include wide receivers. It was a huge drop-off in his production from 23 to 24, and I think he's been open about that. Like, he just wasn't in good enough shape last year, and it was a fall-off that I think he's trying to account for. Whether or not he still has enough in the tank to do that, I think is a worthwhile question. Like, if you get something closer to 23 version of Kelce, and you get the Rashee Rice that you had at the end of last season, but when we saw them in those 3 games, I think that collectively, that is the sort of group they have not had on this team in a very long time.
If you started watching football when Taylor Swift showed up at that Chiefs-Bears game, and that's all you knew about the NFL, you would be able to tell that Travis Kelce looked washed last year. Like, that's how apparent it was. It was shocking. So like it's not just like, oh, incrementally, of course, as you get older, you get less explosive, you lose a little bit. No, it was crazy. And I can't imagine it'll be that bad again. And I'm not saying he'll go back to being like the 2018-19 version of himself, but I think it's got to be better than it was last year.
You know what's really good, I think, for the Chiefs here is that when you're moving toward your wedding, Dave, you know this. I mean, he's now incentivized to be in great shape. I mean, there are a few better motivators than I have a wedding in like a year. I got to make sure I'm fitting in that tux and looking how I want to in pictures. So this is a good thing, I think.
I have something in common with Travis Kelce. Amazing. That's so cool.
I mean, those engagement photos, he's got to look decent for those. And I think there's a little bit extra motivation here for him to, keep things wedding ready.
Yeah, especially next to the biggest pop star in the world, you want to look good.
Well, unfortunately, that didn't help over the last 2 years, but we're not going to talk about that. What is success for the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs? Derek, what do you got for me?
I mean, I know that this is unfair, but I'm sorry. This is the bar when you have Patrick Mahomes. Go to the Super Bowl. Like, it's the same standard I would have held like Tom Brady to, and I think that he is this version of that. So, go to the Super Bowl.
It seems crazy, but I don't think it's wrong.
It's like it probably is a little bit overboard, but like, is it really? They're
In the
Patrick
context
Mahomes.
in the context of where the Chiefs have been, I don't think it's completely fair. Like, go to a 4th straight Super Bowl or you're failures. I mean, that doesn't seem a little harsh. What I'm learning is that I'm just a much more forgiving grader than Derek is.
Oh yeah, I'm like, if this is the team you guys think you built, prove it to me. And a lot of people are gonna fall short, unfortunately.
I think if they make it back to the AFC Championship game, I don't think that is a failure of a season. I think that is a successful season for the Chiefs, despite the standard that they have set for themselves.
I can live with that, but I will still be expecting them in the Super Bowl.
I don't want to continue to. I think we can take a beat on the Brady Mahomes comparisons after this most recent Super Bowl. We can at least wait a little while before we do it again. But I was just curious. I wanted to go back and look at Brady's seasons over the totality of his career. From 2011 to 2018, the Patriots played in the AFC Championship game for 8 straight years. The Chiefs are currently sitting on 7. So to match that accomplishment that Tom Brady had and play in the AFC title game for 8 years, and by the way, they've just never missed the AFC title game when Mahomes has been the starter. So nobody wants to be the first team to fall short of that goal. So I think Super Bowl is one step too far, but if they're playing in the AFC title game, I think that works.
Thanks for watching The Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.